Okay, my name is Denise Krebs, and I am in Bahrain. Today is the 10th of October in the year 2020, and I'm interviewing Tammi Belko from Rocky River, Ohio, for the oral history project titled COVID-19, Teacher, Poets, Writing to Bridge the Distance, which will be archived by Oklahoma State University Oral History Research Program. So, hello, Tammi. Welcome. Great to see you. Will you introduce yourself first and tell me about how you became an educator?
Sure. My name is Tammi Belko. I became an educator in the mid-1990s, and I went into education primarily because I've always loved learning. I love reading and writing, and it seemed like a natural career choice for me because of those things that I love so much. I did stay home for a number of years with my children, my 3 children, to raise them, so I didn't come back into teaching until later in life. And right now I'm a teacher of the gifted and talented, and I focus on language arts.
Great, thank you. To get us started, would you read one of your poems for us?
Certainly. This is titled Dance Party Fun. We dance with no technique, purely wild abandon, there's really no mystique. Head banging, body rocking, chasing a mad shimmy across the kitchen floor. Alexa belting music from the 80s? No worries, my kids can groove, raised on a variety of smashing tunes. Rock and roll, alternative and musical swoons. We can dance and sing Mamma Mia and Bohemian Rhapsody without pause, quite amazing actually. We dip and skip and sashay away, push those blues to another day. Without a doubt, we are crazy family.
Thank you. I love that. You had such a theme of music in other poems too. Are you a musician?
I actually am not. I played the piano when I was much, much younger, but definitely no skill there. We just appreciate music very much in our family. My children all play instruments, and it's just a good way for us to bond.
I love that. Good. Okay, so I want you to think back to that March 2020 and how you learned that teachers in your state were going to be quarantined. I think it happened to everybody, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a very bizarre day. We had an emergency staff meeting at the end of the day on Thursday, March 12th, and we were told the superintendent came on a big screen and basically told us that the governor had ordered a shutdown of the schools. We would come back Friday, teach our last day with our students, and pack them up and send them home. And, we had no idea how long that was going to last. So it was a very surreal moment, kind of frightening too. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. And then, so did the the date that you were going to come back keep changing, or did you stay home for some time and then it kept getting extended, or how?
Yeah, initially they told us we would have an extended spring break because it occurred 2 weeks before our spring break was supposed to happen. So we knew that we were going to be home through spring break, we thought through the end of March. And then, of course, we got the notification that, no, we weren't coming back in March. And then it was, no, we're not coming back in May, and we're not coming back at all. So, yeah, it was crazy. And it just felt like there was no closure to the school year because we never got to say goodbye to our children, our students, It was a very sad end of the school year.
Yeah. So did I miss that? Or did you start, or when did you start doing some online lessons that time?
We did. We actually are a one-to-one district, so we were positioned very well for that transition to online learning. And after spring break, we basically took 2 weeks off, and then after spring break, we went into online learning for our students.
Okay. Was that how did that look? The online learning?
It was a little. Yeah, it was a little chaotic at first. We were primarily using Google, our Google Classrooms, and then we used Zoom as just to touch base with the kids. We weren't necessarily teaching lessons through Zoom. We were just like meeting up with them, conferencing. But that was kind of disastrous because the kids were not, there was no accountability. And most of them thought they were on vacation and didn't even show up and just stopped doing all their work. So yeah, there was a lot of learning loss that last semester in the spring.
And there wasn't, I think I heard that from other places, like the district didn't hold them accountable or even try to necessarily, just let them use old grades or.
Yes, that's what we did. Yeah. It's a good thing we didn't have any end of the year tests because I don't know what would have happened. It would have been a sad situation.
Okay, good. Well, so during that stressful education life, you also had you have a writing life. And I wonder if you could tell us how the pandemic affected your writing life.
I feel like I was a lot more introspective. I spent a lot of time watching TV and the news and thinking and reflecting on current events. Talked a lot to my children about their feelings about what was going on. So that was a lot of the focus of my poetry. It also focused a lot on reconnecting with my family, trying to pull out the things that we enjoyed and reflect on those things that we do together to kind of get through those crazy times. So that's sort of where my writing went. But I did feel very connected to the fellow poet teachers that I wrote with. It was interesting how our outpouring of emotions and words were were such a way to connect with other people from across the world. And it's amazing that we all could come together through our poetry. So that was very eye-opening.
Yeah, for me too. So, well, I wonder if you could read us another poem. I think you have another one about family and.
I sure do.
Great.
Okay, so this one is titled Listen for Your Beat. Verse 1, sweet lullaby, whispered in soft alto, a caress on your baby cheek. Listen for your beat. Verse 2, jubilant two-step rhythm, splashing in puddles, bounding down streets, playing in allegro. Listen for your beat. Verse 3, when you feel disconnected and dissonance bellows, I will always be your counterpoint. Listen for your beat. Verse 4, let me soothe your worries in a sweet cadence when the world sees you as an interlude, off-pitch, staccato. I will always love your vibrato. Keep listening for your beat.
I love that.
Thank you.
It puts such a picture in my head, and it uses all those musical terms. I remember that prompt. It was meaningful for me, too. I read my poem from Stacy's prompt, too. Could you tell us a little bit more about the inspiration for that poem?
Sure. I think when I wrote this, we were actually at a time in our virtual learning where a lot of kids were kind of falling off the radar. And I noticed a lot of students I felt like they were struggling. My own kids were kind of in that stage where they were very sad all the time. They wanted to be back at school. They wanted to be with their peers. And I also noticed, I was reflecting on the uniqueness of children and my children especially, and the importance of them being who they needed to be and listening for their beat. So that was a combination of me thinking of my kind of quirky students along with my quirky kids. But I wanted to celebrate those kids and my own children that have those differences that might not fit into the mold.
All the verses. Lovely. And you have another, I thought we talked about this, like if you'd share another poem about your daughter, just to see her.
Sure, yes. So this one occurred, I think, right after we realized that they were definitely going to be home for the full semester. And we had just packed my daughter up and brought her back home from college. And I think that was the inspiration, if I'm remembering correctly, back to that time for this particular poem. So this is titled To My Dearest Daughter. College online means indulging in homemade lasagna every day if you'd like. No skimping on the mozzarella cheese, baby. And there's copious amounts of red wine, the kind you can't afford at school. Not that I'm encouraging excessive drinking, but still, it's more satisfying to drink with family. Remember, this too shall pass. No, you aren't in Kansas anymore, but pancakes taste better with chocolate chips. You're welcome. There's a can of whipped cream in the fridge. No judgment here. Look on the bright side. There's a gas car in the garage, and the keys are right where you left them. Never fear. Wherever you go, that's where you are, because there's no place like home.
That is precious. Yeah, I'm so glad they had that with you. I'm sure all the college kids that went home didn't get to experience that. That was so sweet.
Thank you.
But, do you want to? I had a question I was going to say. Oh, did you want to share how your I didn't ask you this before. How you picked your poems to share today?
Yes. Actually, I took a handful of them. I took about half of the 30-some poems, and I actually gave them to my kids to read and told them to pick 3 to 4 poems. And then they actually, surprisingly, both my daughters came up with the same ones. So I said, well, that must have been the ones that resonated the most. And they told me that they could hear my voice in those poems. So I'm like, okay, well, then those are the ones I have to use.
That's great. Love that. Okay. So did you discover anything about the way schools work throughout this pandemic?
Yes.
That's a good question.
Even as educators, I don't think we realize what all the other schools that aren't our school, like that are outside of our bubble, what they have to deal with that's different from the differences in, I guess, equality and equitability. I think that one of the things that I realized the most that I really hadn't thought about, because the position of our school is that we have good technology, but that many schools don't. They don't have access to the internet or hotspots or even have computers or a quiet place to work. And it just really shed light on the fact that we need to do something with our infrastructure and just to make things more equitable for those kids that are in areas of low income and disadvantaged areas, to help them get the education they need, because they definitely lost out the most. I don't even know how challenging, it's going to be challenging for them to catch up. A semester of school pretty much gone for most of them. I just felt like it was devastating for those poor kids. And the other thing I thought a lot about was the whole, the community that we build in the school. One of the things that our principal in our district kept impressing upon us was, even if the kids aren't doing their work, try to connect with them, because you might be the only positive connection they have all day long. And the place that a school and the teacher holds for the students is it's something that can't be replaced.
Wow, that's good. Okay. Yeah, I think we answered the question about the schools remained in quarantine that whole year. Did you have any way to celebrate or to finish the year? I know you mentioned that it was anticlimactic.
It was. We did do a parade at the end of the school year. It was a reverse parade. We went to the school. The teachers all stood in the school grounds, and the parents drove by in their cars with their students. That was a fun way to end the year. But we didn't get to see everybody. Not everybody chose to come. But we tried, and we would do our counseling department sent out weekly videos that had like good news videos where kids got to maybe showcase a talent or say what they were thankful for. So we tried to make connections that way. It just felt like we were still missing people, and kids were falling through the cracks.
Yeah. But nice try. Did you have any aha moments about yourself as a teacher?
Actually, I did. I decided to try our crowdsourced poem strategy from where I'm from, the poem that we used through our Ethical ELA. And I had used where I'm from before as a template for my students, but I'd never done it as a crowdsource. And so I crowdsourced it for a lesson for both my 5th and 6th grade language arts students. And it was amazing. Like we had the most amazing poetry come through. We published it to our webpage so that the community could see it. And I can't tell you how excited the kids were about it. They said that was the best activity they had done. So yeah, it made me feel really like I had accomplished something, and that we touched a lot of people through our words.
Very nice.
It was very cool, very authentic.
It was like, we did that, didn't we? We shared like 1 or 2 lines from our poems. They put them all together. Is that how you did it? You let them pick what lines?
I actually I picked the lines for them. I mean, they highlighted things that they suggested that I take, but I kind of helped that and picked the ones that I thought were their best pieces of writing.
Oh.
But yeah, but it was their entire poems, and then I kind of threaded it together in a very similar fashion to what we did as our writing group, But yeah, and then like I said, the fact that we got to share it out to our community was really cool.
That's neat. I like that they liked that, and yeah, I'll have to think of that. Maybe I need to do that. And how about any aha moments for you as a writer?
I think as a writer, it was just that connection piece. Like I did not realize how powerful it would be and how supportive the group would be. I mean, it was like every day that I got to sit down and write and read everybody else's poetry was a therapeutic moment for me. I didn't realize how much therapy I would get through writing and reading other people's poetry. And it was just amazing. It was the best experience I think I've had that whole time.
Yeah, good. And yeah, wasn't it great to have that? I wonder how we would have felt without, like if it would have been missing from our life, it would have been a different experience, wouldn't it?
For sure.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so let's turn to what's next. I can't remember if we've talked about it here or in our pre-meeting, but about the current state of the COVID-19 in your state and school.
So our state itself still has like a mask mandate, and there are still mandates on the amount of people that can gather and in indoor functions and things like that. It's all minimized. The schools themselves are pretty varied based on their district and how bad the cases of COVID are in their counties. So we have everything from hybrid, where the kids go half days or they go a couple days during the week, to kids that are fully in school based on, again, your location in the state. Currently, my own school's hybrid, although I am virtual because we have a group of kids that have chosen to be virtually virtual for the semester, and I'm one of those online teachers. So we have a couple options in my district. And we don't know yet. I mean, we have seen some surveys go out in our communities asking the community members what their comfort level is with returning to school, but we don't have any decisions yet.
Oh, so many questions.
Yeah.
And so what do you want to know or understand better about this time, or education during this time?
I just want to have the most strategies or in my toolbox to help students learn through this crazy pandemic. And so I've been doing, I do a lot of reading, and I've been looking at different types of strategies for imparting things through Zoom. But then the other piece of that is just being there for the kids' emotional support, so that they know that even though I'm talking to them across a screen, that, there's a trusted adult that they can rely on, So I guess for me, it's just getting as much knowledge as I can about strategies for helping my students.
I didn't ask how big your classes are.
I am very fortunate. My class is extremely small because I had a group of kids that were in another class, a teacher who had an overload. So I have like 14 kids in my class, which is very surprising. Everyone else has many more. I just got really lucky.
Okay, nice. Because I was thinking with gifted, maybe it would be a smaller group, but that's a nice, that's a nice size group.
For sure.
Big enough to have a discussion and
yes, exactly.
Stay on one screen.
Yes, exactly. And that's a challenge too, just seeing what they're all doing when you have big classes. But I can get them all on one screen.
Good. And do you want to say anything more about how your position has changed this year, or what you look forward to in the future about like what's next for you as an educator?
Sure. So typically, I'm a gifted intervention specialist. So typically I handle more enrichment pieces, and I'm usually just an English teacher who co-teaches with other teachers. That's what my role had typically been. This year, because they're trying to minimize the size of all the classes, they needed more teachers. So I am a teacher of record for English, and I'm also teaching math this year, which has been a challenge, but we're weathering through. Looking forward to the future, I just hope things go back to normal. I want to be able to see my students and, interact with them on a daily basis and go back to what I'm used to teaching. So that's my hope that happens soon.
Okay. We have, we could ask some, I don't know if you have any input about what needs to change in education. We did talk about that a little bit, Tom.
A little bit, yeah. I guess I would just focus again on infrastructure. I mean, I know that other countries are able to provide internet at a affordable cost across their countries. And granted, they're smaller. I'm thinking of like England, and they have broadband that goes, everywhere. We need to be able to do that too in our cities. The students need access, and it needs to be something that their parents can afford or is available for everyone. Like maybe the cities could purchase a bulk rate or something, but some way for them to have that access, because they're starting at a disadvantage if they can't get the technology they need. So that would be what I would like to see change in education, that equitability.
I like that vision. Keep sharing that. That's awesome. Okay, and what would you like the public to remember about this COVID-19 time, especially regarding education, because this is going to be archived and people will be looking back over a pandemic.
I feel like that people just need to know that teachers are really trying hard. I mean, you don't go into education unless you love children and you love education. And I think that we are working very hard, and I just hope that people realize how challenging it is to be a teacher during this time, and that we're doing everything we can to make this as normal as possible and to educate their children, our children, and I mean, they're our future. Knowledge is power. So we are doing our very best to connect with them in every way we can.
Great, thank you. We have, we're going to end with your last poem, which is a powerful way to end, but I don't want to until you're ready. So I want to make sure that I haven't, that I want you to share anything that I might have not asked you that you want to share. Anything else that we didn't talk about that you wanted?
I'm trying to think what else there would be. I guess just through this experience of writing poetry with other teacher poets, I was able to really look internally and look for the good in the world. look for ways to connect with my family. So that was a really positive moment. But it also gave me a lot of time to think about the things that are crazy that are going on too. So I spent a lot of time in my head, probably more so than I normally would. But some of it was very therapeutic too. So it was a very good experience. And I just would encourage anybody to, get out a journal and write, because we can really get inside of ourselves and put some powerful words out there when we have the opportunities to.
Great. Okay. So your last poem was a spoken word poem that we did, and you can set it up and tell us anything you want to about it, but then we'll end the recording after this. It's a powerful one. I like it.
Thank you. So for this particular poem, I think this was one of those days when during COVID where I was feeling a little bit more overwhelmed, a little more bleak. I think all of us had those roller coasters where you'd have those moments where you were feeling good, and then the next moment you're like, I just need to see people. I just need to see my family. I need to hug people. I need to touch people. And knowing you couldn't was often very depressing. And so this particular poem is a reflection of ways that people kind of fall apart or were falling apart during our quarantine. So this is how to come undone during COVID-19. Step 1. It begins with the steamy mid-morning shower, scalding my skin, standing in swelling water ankle deep. I curse the clogged drain and stagnant water. Step 2. Organize my shoes, organize my sweaters, which I'll need until June. Organize my sock drawer, maybe I'll find the lost ones. Step 3. Wash my hands, stare at the bleeding fissures, repeat. Step 4. Listen to 90s grunge music from dead composers on repeat. Yeah, I got a real complaint. Step 5. Pull the thread on my sweater. Step 6. Obsessively check my email for query response. Think, is there anybody out there? Check query tracker, check submittable, check my email again. Convince myself I'm not a complete failure. Step 7. Use the app on my phone to track the dead. Step 8. Plunge, shower drain. Yank out strands and strands and strands of hair. Curse. It is all mine. I'm sure of it. What's worse than isolation? Going bald during isolation. Step 9. Wash my hands. Stare at bleeding fissures. Repeat. Step 10. End the day with a heavy glass of red wine. Watch bleeding fissures. Count the dead. Pull the thread. Make a note to call the plumber.